Have you ever been blackmailed? It's actually a lot more common than you think. But I'm not talking about the traditional blackmailing, where someone threatens to leak a secret or damaging information unless they are given money or power. I'm talking about emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is a type of manipulation that most likely occurs in romantic relationships, but can actually occur in other relationships as well. Now, this manipulation tactic is subtle. You may not even know that you're being emotionally blackmailed while it's happening. Welcome to Practical Psychology, the #1 YouTube channel for psychological education. And in this video, you're going to learn how to identify what emotional blackmail is, how people use it to manipulate others, and what you can do yourself if you're being emotionally blackmailed. Now, this can be a dangerous practice, even if it does not involve physical altercations or more obvious forms of abuse. So let's jump right in. First off, what is emotional blackmail? Emotional blackmail occurs when someone uses information, usually like secrets, to manipulate another person. This typically happens in romantic relationships and is the subject of the 1990 book Emotional Blackmail, when the people in your life use fear, obligation, and guilt to manipulate you. Now, Dr. Susan Forward wrote this book to help others explain and understand that the fear, obligation, and guilt that they were feeling was a form of manipulation. I'd like to say that the book remains the best source on emotional blackmail, and if you want to take a deeper dive into the subject, I highly recommend reading the book. For now, I'm just going to give you the basics. If you're being emotionally blackmailed, you do not have to walk away from your relationship immediately, even though oftentimes that is the best course of action. You should, however, confront the person who is emotionally blackmailing you and stop the process before you get emotionally hurt. Now, emotional blackmail seems to have 6 stages. I'm going to go through them now. Stage 1 is demand. So the blackmailer wants something from you, but rather than just asking nicely for it, they usually make a demand. Maybe they tell you they want you to cut off contact with a friend or a group of friends, and you don't want to just comply because, they're your friends. So then this moves on to stage 2, which is resistance. You do not directly or firmly give into that simple demand. Instead, maybe you forget to tell the blackmailer that you're hanging out with your friends. Maybe you tell the blackmailer that you have been staying late at work or that you're texting someone else. This feels easier for you compared to flat out denying their demand, but it does continue the process along. Stage 3 is pressure. Now, when the blackmailer has caught on to what you're doing, they'll likely go to the 3rd stage, pressure. And this is where the fear, obligation, and guilt, otherwise known as FOG, come into play. Now, the name FOG is appropriate, not only as an acronym, but also as a metaphor for how people feel during this stage. They're often led astray by pressure and manipulation, as if they're walking through the woods and couldn't see anything due to the fog. So here's an example of what pressure sounds like. The blackmailer could say something that makes you afraid to defy them. For example, if you keep hanging out with your friends, you're never going to accomplish anything you want to do. They'll say you have an obligation to them. As a couple, we should be deciding who we hang out together. Or they'll use guilt. If you actually cared about me, you would consider hanging out with your friends less and me more. Now, this stage certainly doesn't feel good. Deep down, you don't want to stop hanging out with your friends, but the blackmailer is someone important in your life, and they're making it really hard to do so without negative feelings. Now, we move on to stage 4, which is threats. If you continue to deny the blackmailer's demands, they will move on to the 4th stage, which is threats. Now, these threats may be direct, indirect, or even have a positive spin, but they're threats nonetheless. To stop you from going out with your friends, a blackmailer might tell you that if you continue to talk to your friends, they'll leave you. They'll hint that while you go out with your friends, the blackmailer may harm themselves, they may cheat on you, or cause destruction around the house. Maybe even on a positive note, they'll just tell you that they can provide a much better time than if you were to go out with your friends. This may not count as a threat in the law, but it is still a way to manipulate you and get what they want. Now, this is a turning point. Do you give in to these threats, or do you risk the outcome? Many people give in to these threats, hoping that it's a one-time occurrence, which leads us to stage 5. Stage 5 is compliance. If you do give in, you've entered stage 5. Now, this stage may not happen immediately. The blackmailer may spend a lot of time weighing you down with guilt, fear, and obligation, but once you have complied, the blackmailer will likely see this as a win. And all you have to do is watch my other videos on operant conditioning, and you'll know what stage 6 is. Stage 6 is repetition. If the blackmailer sees that this process works, they're going to do it again. Maybe they will not do it immediately, and maybe they'll not even do it in the same way. But if they have another demand that you won't accept, the process will start all over again. The second, the third, and fourth time that you're blackmailed, you might not even know what's happening. You may also be so worn down that fighting back feels exhausting. In order to regain your independence and re-enter a healthy relationship dynamic, you need to create what are called boundaries. Now, before we talk about handling emotional blackmail, let's look at some more examples of emotional blackmail and how it plays out in different relationships. Any of these following threats or statements may be considered emotional blackmail, and I'm just going to go through this list. If you really loved me, you wouldn't dress like that. If you won't let me go to the bar, I'll find my own way out. Everyone says you're being mean for limiting my spending, and because of that you owe me. If you leave me, I won't want to live anymore. You're ruining my life by not letting me drive your car, so now I'm going to ruin yours. We'd be in a much better place financially if you weren't spending so much money on yourself. If you don't change, I'm going to leave you. Now, out of context, these threats may not sound so harmful, but if you believe you are being emotionally blackmailed, it's important to observe and recognize a process in which this manipulation happens again and again. Are you constantly apologizing to your partner, even when you haven't done anything wrong? Are you constantly apologizing for their behavior? Do you find yourself scared for your safety if you don't comply with their demands? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, things have to change. One little quick tip here that actually isn't in the video script that I have found useful is just to start a Google Doc and then every day write down your interactions with that person. By the end of a week or even a month, you can look back and see as plain as day if they're manipulating you or not. So moving on, how do we handle emotional blackmail? Most people don't realize that they do have the power to stop the process in its tracks. As we saw in the 6 stages of emotional blackmail, the person being blackmailed has a role in moving it along. If you continue to passively resist or you comply with those threats, you are the one continuing the cycle. Now, I have to say, breaking the cycle is easier said than done. No one likes confronting their partner or a friend, especially if they can anticipate fear, obligation, guilt, threats, or any negative emotion. Use this video as permission. Do not be scared. Do not feel guilty. Both you and the person blackmailing you have the ability to make choices, have discussions, and set healthy boundaries. The blackmailer is choosing to go about discussions this way, but you have a choice to continue complying or to break the cycle. The first step is simply to recognize what is happening. Like I mentioned earlier, write down what you're observing and seeing and feeling, and you may notice a pattern, both of the blackmail and your compliance. I'm telling you, writing it all down for a month and seeing it all at once is the best way to see for yourself. Once you have identified and recognized this behavior, you will need to set strict boundaries with your partner. Sometimes, simply setting these boundaries can completely break the cycle. Emotional blackmailers may engage in this behavior because they do not know how to properly communicate their desires, and they have just found that this pattern works. If you love this person, or if you want to keep them in your life, set the stage for an open, empathetic conversation. Tell the blackmailer how you're feeling and remind them that you are your own person. You can even show them this video if you want. I recommend to be open and honest about your refusal to comply with threats in the future. If the blackmailer wants to share their feelings or make a request, decide to do so in a healthier way. But now we come to the point in the video is after this conversation, what happens if the behavior continues? Because maybe a conversation is all you need. Unfortunately, many blackmailers engage in this behavior out of narcissism. They're not interested in your feelings, and they're determined to continue this behavior. In fact, their threats may also be violent. They may hurt themselves if you do not comply. They may hurt you, or they may cause other types of destruction. If this is the case, it's important to seek help. Definitely reach out to a therapist, a friend, or even a hotline and share what is happening. Many times, in the case of serious emotional blackmail, the best solution, like I said earlier, is simply to cut off ties with the toxic person. The resources that I just mentioned may be able to help you out of the relationship or at least direct you to someone who can. Wrapping it up, emotional blackmail in any form can be harmful. Mitigate harm by setting boundaries and recognizing that your feelings are important in any relationship. If this does not work, staying in the relationship will only allow the harm to continue. So put your safety and the safety of your children's, your pets, your family, and even the other person first. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I really hope that you've learned something, and maybe something in here has helped you out. And most of all, I hope to see you in the next video.